So I'll be sectioning her hair too. I normally always part at the ears, like this. And this client also has super, super fine hair. Tip your chin down for me. And I normally like to kind of go by the occipital bone. Put this side of the way, and we can see she has her roots here. So she has previous work. And so I'm just gonna go in and try to add some more brightness towards her root. I'm using my Framar foils, curving around her head. And with blonde solutions, you do have to really pack it in. It is a little bit different than some of the other bleaches I've used before, but more saturation, greater lift that you get. And I don't always like to go up to the root too, just because she's going for more of a rooted, lived-in look. And so in order to avoid a harsh grow out, I use this brush and kind of just feather up a little bit. It's just a little bit softer. So as you can see, I'm definitely layering this lightener on here. And because I do that, I have to foil my packets a little bit different than I normally would. So it does take a little bit extra time, but I'm also in no rush when I'm doing a transformation like this. So I'll fold up, and then sometimes I'll just tuck that little tail up. So that way, it being so heavy with the lightener on there, that way it doesn't slide down and it can stay pretty high up to the root. Okay. Then I kind of just move on to my next section. I'm still going for lived in, so I'm not trying to pack it too, pack the foils in too close together. I still want to have some depth at the root as well. Sometimes it's very easy when you're doing platinum to over foil. So I'm gonna go in again. Take a small, fine section, and then pack it in again. And I'm really targeting the darker areas. And then feathering. And the feathering on blonde solutions, I noticed you can't feather up that way. You still kind of have to pack it on there thick, otherwise it will not lift evenly like the rest of the hair. Pick up any darker pieces and leave out her lighter pieces so they don't get over processed. Okay, fold it over, tuck the sides, and then I tuck the bottom. And I basically will follow this pattern all the way through her crown. And sometimes when I'm foiling, because a lot of people have cowlicks up here, I kind of like to see where the hair falls. Sometimes we treat clients just like they're mannequins, so you can't do the same section on everybody. And so I know I'm pulling this hair back, but if that hair falls forward, I'm gonna foil it with the side, and same thing over here. And she has a deep part as well, and so she has a lot more hair on this side of her head, so I'll probably approach this side first. Typically we want to go up just horizontally, but sometimes you have to double check with their cowlicks and how they wear their hair, and so I like to see where the hair falls. So I don't want to pull this hair all the way back and foil it like this and then accidentally foil it too high. So then I kind of like to shake it out a little to see where her natural hair falls. Then I will readjust her part and put the hair where it falls. So then that makes my section in the back smaller, so I can continue up horizontally and then approach this as its own section. So now my smaller section, same thing. Tuck your chin again for me. I know a lot of hairstylists use larger foils, and yes, I could be doing that with her too, but I really like to keep the section small when I'm doing platinum because it keeps it a little bit more precise. So I stick with these traditional Framar pop-up foils just because they're the perfect size for what I need. And so when I'm picking through this hair, this is a pick through. So this also adds a lot more time, but it makes the platinum even cleaner when you pick up as much dark as you can in your section that you're foiling. If you leave it out, it will look like tiger stripes. So feather again, fold up halfway, tuck the corners, fold the bottom up. So you should be able to move up the crown pretty quickly since your section got smaller. And because we're maintaining depth, you should not be foiling every single hair. So sometimes if I'm doing the crown area in a partial like I am right now, I will probably foil anywhere from like 5 to 10 foils depending on the area, the surface area. And so for her, we'll probably get close to maybe 6 foils on the crown area. So we have another pick through. It's really important not to overfoil those blonde pieces and overlap, because then she will have breakage. And if there's a lot of pieces, sometimes I'll just take another foil and layer it just to protect those super blonde pieces already. And this does take more time, but it's not about how many foils you put in, it's where you put them. Okay. I always like to keep my client kind of like a little bit lower than I am, because sometimes if you're foiling too high, I feel like when you have a foil, you don't get the right amount of tension, and so then the foils can slip. So make sure you're always adjusting your client so that way it matches with your body language and it makes sense. So just go gentle. Another foil. This is the tension that I'm talking about. Make sure you're really saturating it. And this goes for any lightener brand, but specifically Blonde Solutions, just so you get the maximum lift. So flip up halfway, tuck the corners, and I just do this little bottom tuck because it's Blonde Solutions, so that way all of that heavy lightener in there doesn't pull my foils down. Okay, I'm gonna do my pick through, preserve all of her light pieces, and really saturate it. And because I'm starting with such a low developer, it gives me time to do a bunch of other things on her ends before I have to come back and check these foils. And it's such a gentle lightener that I know even without an Olaplex or some sort of a bond builder that it's gonna protect her hair. Okay. And then I always leave a little veil on top for blending purposes, but also not over highlighting. So that's gonna be my whole back section. And like we said before, she parts her hair over here, a little bit off center, but she has a lot more hair in this surface area, so I usually tackle the side that has the most hair. I feel like it makes it faster. I don't know if that's actually true or not, but I believe that. Okay, and I'll find her parting from her ear earlier, and I just do it right behind her ear. And sometimes the angle is more straight, sometimes it's a little bit more tipped towards the corner here. Today it's a little bit more towards the corner. So I'll detangle, and then I kind of look and see where I want the angle to be. So I'll probably approach it from this angle and I will pivot. So we'll do a bold face frame, a few foils, and I'll start to pivot to cover all of this area right here. And that gives me enough depth so that way she's not looking solid. because most people are liking this low maintenance look, so they don't want to have to come to the salon all the time. Okay, so I'm going to take this up the angle here and continue my same pattern, still using my 10 volume, pulling out any super light pieces to protect her hair, still feathering the top, so that way when we melt it later, it's just seamless. Fold it in half. So you're gonna have a similar amount, somewhere from like 6 to 10 foils up top in this section, and then we'll mirror it on the other side. And I also like to pivot, tip your head back a little bit. I like to pivot the section. So I will be going up on an angle, but I'll be pivoting to leave little pockets of depth in between, so that way we do not overfoil. Same thing how we did here where we spaced it out. It's spacing it out according to the round of her head, the way that her head rounds here. And this is just one of my favorite little techniques to do to keep depth in. And it's just working smarter, not harder, because it's really hard to add depth back in once you've over highlighted. So you can kind of see an old pattern that I had here too, doing the same thing. And that's the fun way whenever you see your own pattern and you can follow it, it becomes a lot easier when they come in for a touch-up, because you know what to do already. So I will pull out and pick through. You can really see the dark pieces standing out against this light. So this is what I'm pulling through. I'm not really going over her super blonde pieces at this time. Most of her hair drama is going to be at the bottom and in her face frame. Do that same thing, fold up, tuck the corners and the bottom. Okay. Okay, we have another pick through. Probably the only challenging things about going over baby lights is having to pick through all the dark stuff, because it's such a fine section. But it's super important and you cannot miss it. It makes the difference between a lazy technique and a precise one. Quote me. So I'm still leaving all that face frame out because we've already done it recently, and so we will paint it on at the bowl where it's a little bit more gentle. And then also I have my veil up here, so I already pre-sectioned that out before I do my last couple foils, that way I don't grab it on accident and then make it too blonde on top. I'll split that section in half, pivoting, do another little baby light here, keep it nice and tight, so that way the foils are precise. And with this product, you also can never over-saturate. So just when you think you've got enough, just maybe add a little bit more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I have 6 foils, just like we predicted. I'm still on that same bowl of lightener. And where the other section hit too, it's kind of also where their parietal ridge is, where the head rounds. And so make sure you're not going too deep into the side here if it's like a mini touch-up. That way you don't put too many foils right there. You can kind of see where her money piece is right here. Her hair's very fine, so we actually usually go about 5 foils back to give it a really big money piece. And on some people, it may only take like 3 or 4 foils. So I don't want to cut into that. So your pattern kind of just tells you where you need to go. So we're gonna have a lot less foils over here. Tip the top of your head this way. So you see how small our section is here? It's gonna get a little trickier, so you always have to have a pivot point. So I'll probably like start here and start rotating until I end up parallel. And this is a part of bangs that she's growing out too. So I'm gonna go ahead. Sometimes when you have to double up foils, it gets a little thick here, so just make sure you don't pack in 100 foils, otherwise it will get really heavy and hard to navigate. Okay, pivot. So we're leaving these little pockets here. Sometimes I don't always need to double, like pack in another foil. It just depends on how much dark is in there and how thick the section is. So right now I'm not gonna use a double foil. I can just fold it up. Pre-section, and I have one little foil, and then that's it for this part. Please don't by here. Okay, perfect. And this is her partial for that. And then everything else we're gonna do is gonna be like popping teasy lights on the bottom, just to add a lot more platinum versus kind of more of this neutral, leaning on the golden side.